Another fantastic episode of The Executioner Way of Life. Really did enjoy this show. Now, unfortunately, it opened up a ton of can of worms of stuff that I don't know that they're going to get into with this season. Obviously, we only have 2 more episodes left, so I would assume that this is going to be the wrap-up point for the story so far. And that does give me a little bit of pause. I really do hope they end up having another season for this series, but as it stands right now, it's good. It's good. I think it'll have a good chapter close, but this is the unfortunate thing about whenever they start to really dig into the world itself and reveal things that I don't think we're going to get to anytime soon, unfortunately. But yeah, we basically open up the episode with Akari talking to Manon. We find out at this point that, yes, Manon's whole purpose, it seems like her revenge was to kill the people that were a part of this council, because we find out through this whole history lesson that, yes, her mother was one of these otherworlders. But it points out that she was not summoned. That in fact, she came there guided by the stars and arrived in this world, which is kind of interesting. I'm not sure if they'll ever explain exactly what that entails. Like, how would somebody just be guided by the stars and arrive somewhere? Like, just poof, I'm here now. But either way, it kind of shows that the Fourth were able to have this otherworlder that wasn't somebody that was summoned, and so thus the Faust never knew that they actually existed. But the cool thing that came from this is I do like the fact that Menon's father was a good person. Like, he was the leadership of this Fourth, and he did not want them to use her ability because he knew that she would lose herself. She would lose her memories and become crazy. And he didn't want her to lose the memories of their love, which I thought was really pure. I actually really did like that idea. But unfortunately, as we all know, she eventually has to die. That eventually Flare will arrive and kill her. Now, I wish it wasn't as bad as it ended up being. Like, really, Flare, of all the things, could you have at least allowed her to die when she wasn't right next to Manon? But then I guess it wouldn't be as brutal and shocking for us to view. But it was really cool because this whole scene kind of explained a couple things about the pure concepts. One being that Manon immediately asked Flare to kill her, just like she killed her mother. Just get rid of me. Just let me go with my mother. But Flare explains that she is not taboo, that she in fact would not have a pure concept, that apparently pure concepts are attached to the soul themselves. And so she can't just inherit an ability. Now, that was obviously a big question mark that I had last episode was, well, what does Manon have? Does Manon have an ability? Apparently she does not. But this was the staining point of her. From this point on, she had 2 things that were basically drilled into her head. And this is the whole driving force of Manon as a character. Aside from my fears that it would be as simple as Flare killed my mom, so now I want to kill Minnow. Thankfully, it wasn't that simple. Here, she says that you're not taboo. So this created a desire for her to become taboo so that I guess somebody would kill her too. But additionally, she lived her entire life with this expectation that she would have an ability and that she would replace her mother. And that fact that she was a failure from the vantage point of this council was drilled upon her mind that she was a failure. And so she wanted revenge upon them and essentially the world itself. She hated everything. Additionally, there was something else back here that was mentioned by Manon's mom before she was killed by Flare. And that was that she has an older sister. Now, I thought this was a very odd thing to just inject in here and move on. Now that we've established from Flare's words, if we're to trust her, that she cannot pass down a pure concept to her, that means that her older sister doesn't matter. Because obviously, if you thought that they could pass down an ability, the thought process at this point will be, okay, so who's Manon's older sister and does she have a pure concept? No, she's just a regular human. But now that I think about it, I wonder if what she meant there was that she has an older sister in the previous world. That Manon's mother had a child in the previous world, which could just be left back in the other world, or could it be in fact that she at some point could travel this world? Could it be Akari? I don't know that that will be the case because I kind of would hope that that would have been revealed before Manon dies. But additionally, another thing that could be implying there is that maybe, yes, in this world, Manon wasn't the only one that was born in this world. Maybe another child was born in this world. Maybe that child did have some sort of ability, but she was pregnant before she came to this world, and then she birthed in this world. That would allow her to have had a soul transferring to this world and have a pure concept attached to it. But it just seems like there's got to be a reason why the writer went out of their way to have this mother explain that she has an older sister before she died and before Manon dies in the same exact episode. There has to be a significance to saying you have an older sister. I do feel a little sad that we never got to know what Manon's mother's ability was. Granted, I don't think it really matters, but at the same time, she was going to use it, but Flare, unfortunately and kind of twistedly, used the best method possible to stop her from stopping her. If you use your ability, I will kill your daughter too. And then, wanting to protect her daughter, she chose not to use her ability. But after Manon reveals her whole desire to get revenge on pretty much everybody around her, we find out that her ability, or at least this girl's ability, this otherworlder's ability, is much more powerful than Akari. And Akari is kind of thrown off by this. And then she realizes, oh yeah, by the way, at the ceremonial hall, that was a similar ability that I couldn't overcome. And so this is somebody else that's on par with that. Somebody that has an ability that I can't even overcome. And this leads to Minnow jumping in, saving her, pulling her out of there, and then Minnow facing off against Manon, which didn't last very long. Manon basically just points out, I guess this is as far as I can go. But she doesn't die quite yet. She kind of mentions a few things that are really throwing off Minnow. The idea that she kind of congratulates Minnow, and Minnow just doesn't really care about it. And she's like, oh, that's right. You don't really like killing. But it seems like it's okay at this point, because Manon really does seem like she doesn't want to be here. She wants to pass on. And she does note the idea that everybody here just seems to turn to taboos, equally like she did. Again, I kind of attached that to the statement before from Flare, in thinking that I believe that Manon wanted to take upon a taboo upon herself just so that she can pass on. But yeah, this leads to her basically sacrificing herself to bring about this girl. It seems like it needs some sort of sacrifice to bring about itself, and it just kind of bursts out of Manon's body, which is super unsettling. But yes, this brings about Pandemonium, and yeah, Pandemonium was really screwed up in the head. Obviously, she's used her power enough that she has just lost her mind. But we get a few things about Pandemonium from this scene, that she really likes dances, she loves movies, she starts blurting out a bunch of stuff that she enjoys, and a lot of mentions about B-movies, or at least I think monster flicks. That this is that idea that when we see this history from Momo's perspective given to Ashina, that this pure concept that's a part of the Pandemonium really does just, you know, invoke things from her mind that are just these creatures of horrible descent. And that would obviously be something that she could be pulling from the movies that she watched in the previous world. And she also mentions Ivory, which is the whole thing of me knowing there's stuff they're bringing up now that we'll never get into, unfortunately. But Ivory apparently is this warrior from thousands of years ago. It was a pure concept that the people of this world used to save the world. So this is like one of the earliest cases of one of these pure concepts coming in, and the world itself used them as heroes to save the world. But of course, eventually they'll probably lose their minds. She knows that it was the strongest and greatest pure concept ever, and that she's really angry about the idea that nobody remembers them. The mankind here used them and discarded them and no longer cares about them and has forgotten about them. And that's why she hates everybody. So despite the fact that she's seemingly out of her mind, probably because she used her ability so much, she still at least adheres to this one memory that there was this hero long ago that people have discarded. And then, yeah, she summons a whole bunch of monsters, and Minno's gonna have to fight against that. Great fight scene in this episode, by the way. And yeah, the Pandemonium summoning herself was just kind of really unsettling, and yeah, ripping her own head off and creating monsters was crazy. One concept that they kind of touched on a little bit, and I was surprised they didn't confirm it in this episode. Maybe they'll confirm it in the next episode. Obviously, going into this episode, one of the things that we were trying to find out from Akari's perspective is what has caused this change. Why is suddenly, out of all these resets, suddenly things are different? And obviously the thing that she thought was at the core of it was Manon. So she goes and confronts Manon. And Manon doesn't really confirm anything. Akari does find out that Manon's mother is an otherworlder and that kind of stuff, but nothing in this layout explains why things are acting differently. The thing that we were kind of teased at in the earlier episodes was that it was somebody that promised Manon that she could get her revenge. So the assumption was that it's somebody that told her that, which at this point we could probably assume it's Pandemonium. But why is Pandemonium different than anything else? And the theory that I have, that again I was kind of assuming they were going to confirm in this episode, is that the Pandemonium is like outside of everything else. Because there's this barrier, this fog around everything that possibly keeps things from going one way or the other. And so possibly when Akari has used her power to reset everything, it reset everything but what was within Pandemonium. And so thus, this girl, Pandemonium, wasn't affected by that. And so she has been kind of there as things are reset over and over again. The only thing that kind of throws a wrench into that theory that I have is that how was Akari able to turn back time and get out of the fog, if the fog was some sort of barrier. But it could be that just a one direction sort of thing. Maybe it was because Akari used her ability on herself and was able to reverse herself, whereas before when she was reversing the entire world, it was sort of in its own kind of cubby, its own little pocket. But that's my assumption to the answer to what Akari is asking. Why are things different here? Why this time Pandemonium came out and confronted Manon? It was also really interesting to see that Manon, before she died, was really trying to push some sort of change within Menno. Again, she notes the idea that Menno doesn't really like killing, even though that's her job. So she's like, you can change. Why not change? If you don't like this, similar to what I'm doing, why don't you just change things? And she says you can easily just have Akari help you. Akari would be so willing to let you have her abilities. But she also reveals to Menno at this point, at least a confirmation, that Akari had told her she has reversed things multiple times. So why not become a rebel? Why not change things? And then it also notes the idea that she could possibly change Akari. So I'm kind of curious as to what that will be. Maybe change Akari's desire to find death? I'm not sure that would be the case because Manon doesn't know that Akari wants to die. At any rate, episode 10 was fantastic. Really did enjoy it. Again, some really awesome fight scenes. I'm really hoping that they keep up this quality going into these last episodes because the next episode really feels like it's going to be a crazy episode. And like I said, I'm a little bit bummed that it feels like it's introduced a lot of ideas that I don't think we're going to get answers for. Again, I don't think we're going to get the answer to why they brought up the older sister. I don't think we're going to get into this greatest hero, Ivory. Maybe Pandemonium will mention them again, but yeah, maybe confirming my thoughts on Pandemonium being outside of Akari's power. Again, technically, she wasn't able to overcome the power when Manon summoned the power. If that's the same power, then that just shows that she's not able to affect it. But anyway, looking forward to the next 2 episodes. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. As always, if you did, make sure to hit that like button down below. Comment, let me know about the episode. What do you think of my theories? If you know the source material, as always, please don't spoil things. If you've not already, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Share this video if you can. Support us on Patreon or throw our tips link in the description below. Also, we have a super thanks button down below where you can support us through YouTube. We definitely appreciate everybody that does, and y'all take care.